Good afternoon. I'm Vice Mayor Cindy Claycomb, and I'm here today with Assistant City Manager and Director of Development, Scot Rigby. Thank you for joining us, Scot.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Scot oversees economic, redevelopment, and real estate programs and projects. And so you've not done one of these before, Scot.
I haven't.
Yeah, so this will be a new experience for you. These have been pretty popular with folks, so it's an opportunity for people in the community to learn about things that maybe they don't know a whole lot about.
Yeah, and I guess my kids will have something to make fun of Dad tonight when they watch me on social media.
Well, that could be. That could be. We'll see. Or maybe they'll learn something.
Maybe.
That's right. All right. So the pandemic's caused not only our community, but the world to take a pause, and it's expected to have significant impact on development and on real estate activity. So we'll be taking questions at the end about economic investment in Wichita, so be sure to ask those below on our Facebook site. So, Scot, what changes can we expect to see in development as a result of COVID-19?
I think there's a number of different things. Fortunately, for right now for the city, there are a number of projects that will continue. And I think I call it they're continued through the fruition of that's going on. So that obviously the stadium's coming to a close, and that's been a great success. It's fun to see out there as some of the public art gets put in place, and we see a lot of pictures showing up on social media. The developments with EPC, which is out of Kansas City, that they'll start finishing up their first phase in October. Hutton's new headquarters immediately adjacent to that, and then just across the street is TGC's new hotel. And so by the end of the year, you'll start to see that area start to really see new opportunities. That's about $60 million worth of development just there. And I think just to the west of the stadium, we've already talked about there'll be a future multimodal garage that'll go in.
Yeah.
So in the Delano area, you'll see development continue to go on. In the downtown, you have TGC's new 430 project where IMA is going to be moving in. That's going to be towards the end of the year, and with Emporia transitioning to two-way. So I think downtown will continue to see activity through the remainder of this year. What we're really seeing is a lot of hand-holding right now with development in our businesses. How do we support them, whether it's through PPEs as they start to figure out how to reopen? Can we be a help with them to locate that type of equipment? And then can we also help them as they look for financial assistance to the federal government for whether it be manufacturing or other activities? The other part we're looking at is how do we transition Wichita going forward to minimize, I call it this volatility that sometimes we see in cities like ours.
Sure. And, because of what we faced with the problems in aviation with the 737 MAX, which were none of our making, and then
Sure.
and then a pandemic behind that, again, none of our making, it really kind of accelerates some of those issues. So, at our economic development retreat last week, we discussed some of our current efforts to attract and retain companies to Wichita. So can you discuss some of those?
Sure, absolutely. Many years ago, back in 2012, when the last time the economic development policy was created, it was more of a reaction, I'll call it, to some of the less than desirable type of deals done in the past. And so it was lessons learned. Council said, hey, we want to be more mindful and really take an exacting look at developments. Today, we want to be more open to different ideas and different approaches to development, and not so much just look at the hard, I'll call it the black and white numbers of jobs, capital investment, those type of things, but also the value added to the greater community. For example, if a development were to go into a redevelopment area, an area that has blight, what maybe we may consider in the past, well, I don't know if that's really a project, we may say today is, hey, the halo effect, I call it, is you open up a business that helps cut down on blight and maybe creates other opportunities for the businesses around it to say, hey, we should reinvest. That's one aspect, and to be more accommodating. So when development, as we look at diversification in the economy, and for Wichita particularly, as we've talked about, how do we get out of the, I'll call it the yo-yo of manufacturing, is can we be more approachable for businesses that may be coming from other areas of the nation? We may see that coming out of this pandemic where nothing against those big cities, but there may be a desire for business to say, maybe the urban density is maybe not what we want. Is there other locations that can meet what we need, but in a less dense situation? So we want to prepare for that and be accommodating to those opportunities.
Yeah, and so, we talked about development in downtown right now and kind of, right out from that, but I think this even opens up opportunities for other parts of the city besides that for some of this redevelopment.
Absolutely, and we want to get the rest of the city going, and we see different pockets really starting to to accelerate before the pandemic, and now we're,
Yeah.
K96, Greenwich area, the west side with the New Market, the waterfront area, those are all picking up, but we also want to work. We have a Fuse fellow that's been working with us in opportunity zones. How do we get development into those areas that might be a little bit off the beaten path? And how can we structure some city programs tied up with state or federal programs to provide, I'll call it that additional carrot for somebody to consider moving into that area for the bigger benefit?
Yeah, so looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, this pandemic's caused some shift in operations in the way that will likely influence future business operations. For example, many employers are realizing that employees can be successful working from home. Even we've seen that at the city, some of the
yes.
things we're doing here. So some economists are predicting that we'll see a shift for businesses to allow employees greater flexibility in remote work. Do you think we can capitalize on that trend in any way?
I think so. So it used to be is, where's my shop? Where's my address on the building? And for a city, we say, hey, they're located in Wichita. It may be the company's quote unquote headquarters may be in New York, but they outsource and they're hiring the next Cindy Claycomb or Scot Rigby as program developers or accountants who may be located in Wichita. And for us, it's nice to have a brick and mortar store or residence, but it's just important, even more so, to say, do we have jobs for our citizens? And so whether that job may be Wichita, but they're servicing the company out of Germany, doesn't matter as long as they're seeing the economic impact for them. So I definitely think Wichita is poised well to be able to meet that need for remote working. It'll probably even change how the city hall works. Do we all commute in on every city day to work, is it? Or does more flexible schedules for people to be more accommodating? And that might be something as we talent recruit, what's our flexibility? Is it just years past Silicon Valley and they're strange, oh my gosh, everybody's got unique, but is it something that can translate into more and more businesses?
Yeah, and I'll make a pitch. I think Wichita's a great place to live. And so it's a very comfortable place to live. You can get around easily, and we have a lot of good quality of life things here. So if we can attract some of those folks that, they, like you say, may really work somewhere else, but they stay here. So, all right. Well, anything else before we take questions that we?
I think we're all going to be learning over the next 6, 12, 18 months, and as a city, we need to be prepared to be accommodating and think differently about how we approach things, maybe what we would have done 6 months ago or a year ago. So I like how our retreat went. I think council is very open-minded to say, how do we approach this? What may be a thought process a year ago is not the same process today. It may not be the same a year from now. We want to provide an opportunity to continue to be flexible to meet the needs of our citizens, residents.
And that's pretty evident. The retreat I thought went really well, and I've been reading through the documents that you guys supplied to us, and I can see the evolution of those, now being on council for a little over 2 years, and just to see, like you said, before we were doing things to stop people that had done bad things, and now we've realized, okay, so we've learned those lessons and incorporated those, but now how do we make this really work for the whole city? And so I've been pretty pleased with that.
Good.
So
Thanks.
All right. So Megan is joining us today on a via remote. So Megan, do we have some questions?
We do. So Scott, earlier you mentioned the baseball stadium project. Obviously, that's still going forward. Unfortunately, we can't have baseball right now. But what are some of the development projects we can look forward to around the stadium?
Wow, great. And you see you had a fan there barking in the background, so fantastic. Around the stadium, we were seeing tremendous interest, I'll call it pre-COVID and even up to recently. The interest is still there. Everybody's kind of taking a pause and see how do we approach that. The team has the option to develop up to 4 acres around there. It's interesting. McLean just opened up. And I've already had a few calls and say, hey, there's a lot of room on either side. Is that all for, just walking around? And it is for the temporary time being, but the goal is on either side of McLean, there'll be development opportunities. And then what you see with EPC and TGC and Hutton, it really highlights the development opportunity. We think Delano area in and around the stadium is really going to, I'll call it pop, after we come out of the COVID and after we learn how to bring back baseball and other activities, that'll be kind of a destination for an area. We in our office call it our next entertainment district, just like Old Town is. Can we extend that Old Town feel across the river and create I'll call it a larger downtown? So we think there's interest, in hotels down the line, restaurants, offices. We're already talking to a couple of office users who are thinking, is that a town attraction? During the day, they're working in the evening. Do they head out to an event at the baseball stadium? or walking down McLean, hitting some of the restaurants and other activities. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, and I've talked with EPC Developers, and you mentioned earlier, they're from Kansas City.
Yes.
And so it's nice to get that mix of folks from out of town and then our local
Yep.
folks all investing. But in talking to them, I think that was the attraction to them of Delano. They could see that this was gonna be something really great. It was really cool now, and it was really gonna just,
Let me just say one more thing about it. Everybody looks at the baseball stadium for baseball, which is fun and exciting, and
Yeah.
that's the pastime, but really the benefit we see at the city, especially in our role as EcoDevo, Economic Development, and the Greater Wichita Partnership is an opportunity to do client relations, is an opportunity to bring a company in that maybe hadn't thought about Wichita, who didn't know anything about Wichita, not right or wrong. How do we expose them? And oftentimes you can sit in a meeting, whether it's a Zoom or face-to-face, and have a good discussion, but they don't get the feel and the flavor and the activity, and they
Yeah.
think, how do I bring my workers here? Versus, can we have that discussion, and then in the evening, go see a game and see the festive atmosphere, see that livelihood going on, and they get that aha moment that says, we could be here in Wichita. And it was a big deal for Cargill. When they decided to stay,
Yeah.
their point to us is, we need an opportunity to show Wichita can be that fun and active place for our next 20, 30-year-olds who are thinking, do I stay here or do I stay to other metro areas?
yeah, absolutely. All right, Megan, we have another question?
We do. Scott, what are some other areas of town that you think will be hot for development next?
Great question. We were seeing tremendous amount of activity up in the K96 Greenwich area or Greenwich, depending on where you're from. A lot of interest on sports and tourism development. There was a lot of discussion whether it was a Topgolf or Big Shot. REI was a big user out there, and that's kind of become known as our active sports area. And again, that's an opportunity with all those active sports, some great housing around there, some hotels, and with our new Stryker complex, we are seeing tremendous activity from out-of-state tournaments, out-of-state teams coming in, and we looked at that and talking with the state even. It's an opportunity to invite, I'll call it the Claycombs, who maybe have never been to Wichita again, and they come there to support little Johnny and Jane, and they go, wow, look at all this great housing. Wow, I never thought of taking a job at Coke or Cargill or whatever it may be, going, let's give Wichita an opportunity. So I think it's a prime area. New markets obviously been very successful. We continue to see that. The Delano area we already talked about. I think one of the areas we want to focus more, even more so, are two airports, both Eisenhower and Jabara. As we pivot looking forward, we're working with our partnership friends. Is this an opportunity to approach our congressional delegation to find additional funds to help do some infrastructure improvements to open up, I'll call it the west side of Eisenhower or the east side of Jabara. Both have large areas of tracks. But as we've talked to companies in the past, the limiting factor is infrastructure, whether it's taxiways, water, wastewater, and streets. And so if we can find ways to open those areas up, those are valuable pieces of property as we have manufacturing, but maybe it's maintenance, repair, and overhaul, or maybe it's other areas of aerospace that we can be attractive to.
Yeah, and we have the opportunity for that growth.
Yes, absolutely.
We have the land and we have the workers and, those sorts of things, so.
Yep.
All right. Other questions, Megan? We have any more?
Well, we have one more, and it's probably the question we get asked most in regards to economic development, and it's a hard-hitting one, so brace yourself. But Scott, will Wichita ever get a Cheesecake Factory?
Oh boy, that has been the question day one. I would say I'm optimistic with the recent announcements of H&M, which was a huge success for my 4 daughters. And I get Christmas cards for H&M every year from them, thinking thank you so much. With REI, which a lot of people thought that was probably not likely to occur,
Right.
but really demonstrates the opportunities. And some other key shops that have opened up, it really has exposed Wichita out there in the retail market. I think if we come out of the recession good or the COVID situation, and that area up in the K96 area downtown resurges, especially on maybe around the baseball stadium, it allows us an opportunity to have a discussion that probably wasn't there before for a company like a Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah.
Or maybe an In-N-Out, but that's
Yeah.
maybe that's a bridge too far. But we'll go for a Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I think it's the most requested restaurant right now.
That's what they tell me.
Yeah, that's what I hear too. When I see these, they're non-scientific polls, but still polls that show.
Whataburger is another one I get a lot
Yeah,
about. But,
yeah, that's
so.
true. All right, Megan, anything else?
We have one more. And Scott, this is pretty location specific, so maybe this individual needs to reach out to their council member. But the area of 21st and Broadway, are there any plans for businesses to move into that area? There are some empty storefronts that are available. Anything that you know of for that area?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the area. I'm trying to think if I've had any recent inquiries about that. I've had probably over the last 6 to 9 months, but nothing recently. We're always open to that. I would say the city's always open for business, and we want to work with them, whether they're a small business or a large business. I think that's what more we talk about the retreat, is how do we help not only those mid and larger businesses, how do we attract those smaller businesses or local businesses who maybe are entrepreneurial, say, how do I get a storefront that maybe is not big enough for downtown or the price of downtown, but can go into some place like 21st and Broadway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you know, that's the Nomar Plaza
Yep.
area. And we also, it's right adjacent to an opportunity zone.
Yep.
And so some of that's in the opportunity zone, some it's not. And we've talked about, you know, is that right for some development? And
we're trying to be creative with our new housing director, Sally Stang, who's fantastic. One of the things we looked at is how do we use affordable housing?
Yeah.
And we have certain opportunities with our rental assistance demonstration program. Can we combine, I'll call it a public-private partnership, where maybe there's an affordable housing component that housing could be a part of, that could bring federal dollars along with, and maybe it's a market that isn't there today, or a
Absolutely.
small business, or maybe it's a healthcare clinic. In and of themselves, they might have difficulty finding that lending, but maybe combined with that creative thinking, there could be an opportunity to do a project. So we're open to that. We explore that with Sally and with Angeline, with our Opportunity Zone Fuse person. We're open to those ideas.
yeah, I see just great opportunity there.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Is that it, Megan?
And that's it.
All right, thank you for your help today. So Scott, thanks for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
I really appreciate it. We look forward to continuing efforts to position Wichita to continue to diversify and grow our employer base. So stay safe, Wichita.
Great.
Thank
Thanks.
you.